here at home, the fallout continues on Parliament Hill today in the wake of that bombshell report earlier this week that claimed there is intelligence to suggest some MPs have knowingly helped foreign governments. The issue was prominent during question period last hour, and the CBC's Karina Roman joins us live from Ottawa with more. Karina, walk us through what was said in the House of Commons.
Well, the Conservatives finally picked up the line of questioning on this. It was the first time since the report dropped that we'd really heard from the Conservatives. And they also sort of picked up the baton on the call for naming names of the people who are not named in the report, but who are clearly the ones alleged to have engaged in this behavior, such as wittingly aiding foreign states in terms of foreign interference here in Canada. Whether we're talking about MPs or senators, we are talking about parliamentarians. And, you know, in that, picking up the request for names, that is really what their first question was, or Pierre Poilievre's first question was in question period today. Have a listen.
Canadians have a right to know who and what is the information. Who are they?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition knows very well that no government, including the government of which he was a member, is going to discuss particularities of intelligence information publicly, so he knows better than that. But the good news, Mr. Speaker, is if he wanted to get the appropriate security clearance and be able to see the confidential report of the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians, he would be much more informed than he is now.
That is not the first time that the government has offered for the Leader of the Opposition to get the security clearance he would need to see classified information. It's also not the first time that he will be declining that, because Pierre Poilievre has often said, well, if I see it, I still can't talk about it, and then we're no more transparent than we are at this stage. But who has not refused that security clearance nor briefing is NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, who says he has requested a briefing. There's no timeline yet on when that briefing will take place. He says he's not aware of any MPs in his caucus that would be involved in foreign interference, but reporters asked him, well, if you read this report, the unredacted report that will have the names, and you find out some of them are yours, or at least one of them, what will you do? Have a listen to what he said.
Something happens, I'll let you know what my next steps are, but I will take steps. The difference between me and the Prime Minister and Pierre Poilievre is Pierre Poilievre doesn't even want to know, so he's not even going to look for the information. I'm requesting a briefing. I want to know what's going on. Once I know, I will take steps.
Now, what those steps would be, he wouldn't say. You know, it was put to him, well, if you suddenly kick someone out of caucus after reading this report, we're going to kind of know the person and the person's name. But there are things, I suppose, that could be done more subtly, such as not allowing them to run for election next time, or asking them to fall on their sword, that kind of thing, something a bit more subtle. Now, the Liberal had all the parties had caucus this morning. Liberal backbenchers were stopped and asked, and quite forthcoming in their feelings on this report. Nathaniel Erskine-Smith was one of them. He says he's counting. He wants some kind of accountability, and he says in certain circumstances he thinks names could be given. Have a listen.
If someone has actively cooperated, so I forget, it was around paragraph 55 to 58 or so, but at one point they said, and in one instance there was a then member of Parliament who had a relationship with a foreign agent. Yeah, that person should be named in the shorter term, and fuller allegations should be laid out, and we should have proper due process on that.
Now, Liberal backbencher Chris Biddle also stopped to talk, and he says he's worried that with no names out there, you know, everyone is suspicious and everyone looks bad. Have a listen.
It's obviously worrisome, and that's putting it mildly. Canadians need to have an expectation, and it reflects poorly on the rest of us. If it's one or two, either in the Senate or the House of Commons, and those names aren't out there.
And Karina, the chair of the National Security and Intelligence Committee that put out Monday's report, was pressed further by the Parliamentary Press Gallery today. What did he have to say?
So David McGinty said that, or pointed out, this is the third time that NSICOP, the Committee of Parliamentarians, has reported on foreign interference, which is part of why the report did criticize the government for what it felt was very slow action in combating this problem. But he also said names cannot be named. He certainly can't name any, he said, and neither can anyone on the committee. Have a listen.
Under what circumstances could those names be revealed, and does the public not deserve to know?
The members of the committee are bound to this Security of Information Act for the rest of their lives.
So the names will never come out?
We can't listen. The question of whether or not this issue is followed up on is a question rightly put to the RCMP. And it is up to the RCMP to decide on the basis of any intelligence or evidence they may have in their possession whether they're going to take steps or not.
Now, in regards to the RCMP, that's not the first time in the last couple of days that MPs have sort of pushed it off to the RCMP as the next step in this process, and that if an investigation led to charges, then we would have names. But the report also talks about the gap between intelligence and evidence in Canada and that challenge. And so even if there is this intelligence out there, it's not clear whether the RCMP can do anything with it and take it further. So that's what's got some people concerned, that this really will just sort of stop with this report.
So much to follow on this story, Karina, every day. Thank you. The CBC's Karina Roman live in Ottawa.